I wanted to talk today about the role of managing as compared to the role of leading. And I'd like, I guess, to speak for about 20 minutes on the first and about 35 to 37 and a half minutes on the second, and then stop. And then I believe we have microphones here and here, and I would love it if, I'm not sure how you're going to shimmy or shuffle out of your rows, but I'd love to take any questions that you may have that will get us to the top of the hour. Is that okay? So if you're saving up questions, I'll be perfect. We'll be able to take them in the last 10 minutes before the end. The role of manager and leader, you may have different words for those two roles, but normally when we think of manager, we think of something that is subservient to leader. You think you're a manager, and therefore you're just really a mini leader in waiting. I'd like to draw a different distinction between those two roles. Whatever you may end up calling those roles in your leadership development program or in your vernacular, I'd like to draw a really keen distinction between what a manager actually does and what a leader actually does. And I guess I'm going to make the case that these two things are not one in subservience to the other, but actually the opposite of one another. The role and the skills needed to excel as a manager are very, very different, albeit equally important to the roles that you need to excel as a leader. Some of you in this room may have the talent to do both excellently. But in all my experience of interviewing leaders and managers, I find very, very few people that aren't predisposed, at least partially more, toward one role than another. This has nothing to do with level in the organization. You could be the chief executive of the entire organization and be a great manager. This isn't about level. It's about responsibility and function. So I'm going to start with managing and then move on to leading and take your questions. Here's managing. Hopefully you can see that all the way back here. Apparently, if I click on this, I advance my own slides. There we go. Look at that, Alex. That works. Genius. Normally, I'm allergic to technology. I get close to it, and the whole thing just blows up. So this is an excellent start. The responsibility of a manager is this, at least in terms of the way that I'm conceiving this from all the research that I've been a part of. The chief responsibility of a manager is to turn one person's talent into performance. If you're a manager, you have a small group of people that report directly to you. And again, whether you are the chief of the entire organization, or whether you are a frontline supervisor with your first squad, your first team, the role of the manager is looking at those individuals who happen to be on your team and figuring out some way to get the most out of those individuals. Graphically, for those of you that like graphs and pictures over words, here's one way to look at it. Hopefully you can see that okay. You want performance. As a manager, you've got a whole bunch of people that report to you. You want them to be productive. And those people have strengths, and those people have weaknesses. And your challenge, simply put, as a manager, is how on earth do I take my understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of the people that report to me and somehow turn it into performance? If you ever, and I hope you do, if you ever work for a really great manager, whatever you want, whatever that person's title is, whatever that person's level is in the hierarchy, when you work for a great boss, that person will somehow have figured out how to take the strengths that you possess, take the weaknesses that you possess, somehow combine all of his understanding or her understanding of that and turn it into productivity. How do they do that? What is the one thing that every great manager seems to know that other less effective managers seem to have forgotten? Well, it's pretty straightforward. When you look at strengths versus weaknesses, the best managers seem to understand that the key thing that you got to be able to do really, really well is this. You got to find what's unique about that person. They may all have the same title, they may all have the same job function, but a manager knows that I don't have a bunch of generic individuals reporting to me. I have a bunch of unique individuals reporting to me, and I've got to figure out how to take the strengths of each one and maximize them, and take the weaknesses of each one and minimize them in some way.